Thank you, sir. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We now start with the first of our two panel discussions that we have for this afternoon. The panel discussion one on enhancing public-private partnership in water. May I please introduce to you the chair for the panel discussion, Dr. Arvind Prasad, Director General, FICCI. The panelists that we have for the day are Mr. Patrick Russo, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, Veolia India; Mr. Bastian Moharman, Co-Head Asia and Middle East, 2030 Water Resources Group; Mr. Arun Lakhani, Chief Managing Director, Vishwaraj Infrastructure Limited; and Mr. Pranab Majumdar, Head, Boot VA Tech, Wabag. I welcome you all, sir.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction, some kind of panel about the panelist, but as you can see, I'll tell you some more about the panelist. We have the panelist who has very wide experience, both globally and India, in this water management sector. And as you know, within India, we have huge opportunities and of course related challenges for the private sector as well. However, it has not been a great success, and therefore the deliberation today will be of extreme value if you can figure out some of the policy interventions required, some of the issues which different stakeholders need to address for these opportunities or the challenges, the way you put it, to exploit fully. We have Mr. Bastian Moharman on my left. He is Co-Head Asia and Middle East, 2030 Water Resource Group, IFC. He is in IFC. He has been in IFC for almost more than 23 years. So it's a very long years of experience, and of course, being in IFC, he has the experience from different countries. We have Mr. Patrick Russo. He is the CEO and Managing Director of Veolia India. He is also the Managing Director of Grameen Veolia and Chairman of Orange City Water, in charge of Nagpur Water Utilities. I am told that perhaps this is the only successful PPP model in India. So, and Veolia itself is a French company having experience in both water management, waste management, and energy services. So his experience will be of equally important for our deliberations today. We have Mr. Pranab Majumdar. He heads the Boot PPP segment in water and waste water India and global with VA Tech, Wabag Limited, a seasoned professional with more than 30 years of experience. So again, we have a very strong, experienced person here. We have Mr. Arun Lakhani. Mr. Arun Lakhani, along with Patrick Russo, they manage Nagpur water system. So from the Indian partner, and his experience are equally relevant. So the whole idea of today's session will be looking at both the sides of it, water supply and wastewater management. Wastewater management, both urban areas and industrial wastewater management, and naturally the issues relating to the weakness, strength of urban local bodies, support required from the government, institutional system, financial system, PPP models relevant for the given situations. We are all aware about the difficulties of charging user fee or even collecting it in water sector, related energy sector. We also have water is even more difficult. So all these issues, we have the experienced panelists. We'll hear them, and then of course we'll, with your help from the delegates who are present, they are equally experienced, we'll try to bring out issues which can help develop this PPP model in a manner so that we can address the water issues and water management issues both in the countries. Just to give you some ideas about the challenges or the opportunities, I was just referring to high-powered expert committee report, which has come out, the report came in March 2011, but I'm quite sure that in last 4 or 5 years, the situation on the ground might not have changed so significantly. So we can rely on the data given by them. They have mentioned that in India, in class 1A cities, that means essentially the city with population of more than 5 million, in 53% of the cities they don't have any infrastructure or network of sewage management. So only 47% has any kind of such facilities. And in class 3 cities, only 10% have. In fact, in class 4, at the lowest rank, almost none of the town has any facilities of sewerage management. Even in the cities where they are there, the other studies have shown that only Chandigarh, Mysore, Surat and New Delhi, only 4 municipal corporations can be said to have a reasonably satisfactory level of sewerage and sanitation services. And water supply is, as I mentioned to you, is limited even to a less number of cities, with only one exceptional of successful.
I think what Patrick suggested, I will skip Nagpur in a great way as far as 24/7 is concerned, except referring it in a passing way. And I would rather go on the other aspects which I think are important, and also on that 200 MLD sewage treatment project, on first PPP project in India that we are doing there with 100% private investment. So I will probably elaborate on that. So the subject today, I think the enhancing of the public-private partnership in water is like quite relevant thing looking at the current situation. Coming to the then, what are the challenges? How do we get this, things going? We need over $75 billion, $80 billion in water and wastewater HPEC report, what Mr. Prasad was referring to. So let's see the challenges. What are the challenges? Because challenges also bring the opportunities. So we have 38% population, urban population now. Our coverage is hardly 64%. Most importantly, over 50% of water is still unaccounted for in most of our towns. And there are challenges for tariff reforms, because it's a sensitive subject, not only because it touches every human being, but also culturally we somehow feel that water should be free. So telescopic tariff, which is I personally feel is very essential to make people aware of the value of water as water, is a dream, because hardly 4% meterization has happened. So unless we have the first step of meterization, we cannot think of implementing any telescopic tariffs. Willingness to pay versus willingness to charge is a debate. I will say, this is a real debate, because we feel many times it is more of willingness to charge is a challenge rather than willingness to pay if you are giving a good service to people. As per HPEC report, then you need almost $45 billion for these class 1 and class 2 cities to address. Going to the wastewater side, the situation is even worse. We have over 38,000 million liter per day of sewage that we are throwing into the environment untreated in these class 1 and class 2 cities. ULBs are cash strapped. Their priorities, they don't have the tax regime to really think of doing capex for the STPs. They have hardly any money for even operating it if they get it done by the central assistance. Because their priorities will always be water, then the cleanliness, then the roads and the lights. So there is not enough money with the ULBs to build a sewage treatment plant, and it really does not affect day-to-day life of citizens in any which way. So politically also it goes on the ladder of priority quite low. But this has resulted into a real health hazard, where we say 21% diseases are waterborne, because now this sewage is contaminating our freshwater resources. You see in most of the towns the wells are contaminated. They are all almost gone. If we talk of how do we convert this particular situation, probably can we convert this liability into a an opportunity or an asset. If we look at the sewage as a resource, because that is one sure certain resource of water that is available within the city limits. You see, when we supply 100 units, we get 80 units back as sewage. Now, if we can extract water back from this, it is a certain available resource. I'm sure this will become one of the major resources in the future times for particularly the industry and agriculture, if not for drinking, because we have enough water, because it releases the fresh water for drinking. If industry uses the treated water, that much quantity of fresh water gets released, like what we are doing in Nagpur. We have taken up a 200 million liter per day STP sewage treatment plant. So this is funded 100% by the private investment, by ourselves. There is no grant, no and no Amrut funding for that. The model is simple, that it's an annuity model, so they will pay us capex and opex for 15 years. But if we start selling water to the nearby thermal power stations or industry, then we have a sharing formula with the ULB. We are confident that with the type of thermal power stations we have, and we are in advance discussions with them, that this cost of the STP and the OPEX for 30 years will be free to the ULB. So now we are converting a cost center into a profit center for them, and we are releasing 200 million liter per day of water, which the thermal power station was using for the city's drinking purposes. So we are augmenting drinking water. We are also taking care of a serious challenge of environment. But this is okay, this is one example. Probably like what Patrick said, there was like a forward-looking leadership. There is a good bureaucratic support. So they could come up with new models. But how do we do this across India? For that, we must have, like some incentives for reuse of water and also control on the groundwater extraction. Because these two together can only lead, because you cannot force industry to use the treated water, because the cost of treated water is 3 times what they get from the irrigation. So there is no, it's a no-brainer. Everybody will say no, why should they use it? So government has to intervene here and, incentivize those guys who are using it. I think one of the questions we have specifically addressed to this, so we'll come to that again. So these type of models, I think, on sewage treatment are essential. Government on their side has announced, like we need, like I said, almost $25 billion in this sewage sector here. Again, they're referring to the same report. So together we need more than $70 billion for water and wastewater. Government part, they have announced some smart cities, Amrut, Namami Gange, Swachh Bharat, and they are all large schemes, $8 billion, $10 billion. But they also need private participation into this, not only for the balance amount, but also for the accountability that it brings in. See, like Patrick rightly said, the question is who is accountable to run those facilities, those investments, what we have done. Like for example, in Namami Gange, a lot of investment has gone in earlier from the earlier regime as well. But if it is not working, then it's, it has no point. Maybe the private participation takes the cost a bit up because the private financing is costly. However, I think you are buying accountability by that additional cost. And then coming to the most important thing, what Patrick has already mentioned in this, that if we want to get this really going, I mean, all these plans of, multi-billion dollars of government and equal participation coming from the private, we need a robust structure which addresses the risks. Like, we both are not bidding for that South Indian bid because, risks need to be shared. You cannot just pass on the risks to from one partner to another. And who should take what risk? I will say a partner who is capable of taking that risk should accept that risk. He should not try to pass it on just because of his position to a private partner. Then it will not fly. Like, it has to be balanced. I mean, I'm 100% in sync with Patrick here. So if we say that, I will just give one example of Nagpur here. I cannot avoid Nagpur because in Nagpur, when this was discussed in the pre-bid meeting, there was a serious challenge about, credible data of billing, because there was no data of customers who are paying, and because it was a single entry system. So really you didn't know how much customers are paying. So it led to a situation wherein, it became non-bankable. If you don't have a revenue stream which is ascertainable, no lender will touch it. So NMC proactively did one thing. They said for first 5 years, we will support you with a minimum take or pay. Within this 5 years, you do the survey, build the data, do the proper accounting system, and if you cross that minimum take or pay in between, then you are on your own. But this type of support that they have taken, mitigated the risk, has helped the project to, really what we are calling it on the way to success. On the other hand, for the private operator, we get paid only for the volume we bill and collect. So that is our risk. If we don't bill and collect money and put it into the escrow account of the corporation, we don't get paid. So you see, the thing that as a private operator, we are most appropriate to take this risk, and we should take this risk. That's why we are there. And on the government side, they should also ensure that what is not in our hand need to be mitigated. Because like we also see this now happening in the road BOT. I will just refer it in a passing way, because this new hybrid model is the realization that risks cannot be just passed on to private people. Now in this new hybrid model, we see that the traffic risk is being shared by the government. So I think we are on the path to evolve to a proper model wherein we have a document which will probably address these concerns. Another intervention which I think government can do is probably an insurance wrap on the central level, which will assure payments from the ULBs. If they may not be able to, directly do that, they may not be able to, like, due to our constitution, but they can offer a helping hand to ULBs. Today, the class 2 cities and class 3 cities or towns where the infrastructure is really, really needed, where you really don't have much infrastructure, and a lot of private investment can come there. The only stopping point is the capacity of the ULB to understand and implement, and most importantly, who will assure the revenue back to the private player. There has to be a government intervention, state or central, to give that type of assurance. This, I think, will lead to a much larger, market and much larger, benefits to the citizens at large. The other thing which I feel government should, of course, should encourage the bond markets and the investment trusts so that we get long-term financing, at a comparable cost, if not, few points above than the international market. But government should also, as a part of their structure, should take efforts to communicate to people, which today, in today's context, they think it's the private party's role. They must communicate with the people at large. Like I say, the 4P model. We must graduate from PPP to 4P model, because unless we take people on board, unless we communicate to them the benefits as well as the hardships that they will have to go through in achieving any PPP success, onboarding of people, in my opinion, is important for the private operator, because it mitigates a very large risk, because these contracts are 30 years contract. So regimens, there are bound to be changes in the regimes. There are bound to be changes in the people. So unless your only insurance or de-risking is that if you have people on board, and in this effort, at least in the initial years, both public as well as public as a government and private as a private must work hard, because like Patrick said, the structure has to be balanced. One, it has to bring value for all the stakeholders, and the largest stakeholders are people, because we are talking of water. Everybody, every human being is touched by water. So here, unless we onboard them and they support such projects, it will be difficult. I mean, in Nagpur, we did a great exercise. In the beginning, we contacted 50,000 school children in My City, My Water, and it benefited us in a big way. And this interaction, maybe it took time, 1.5 years, you know, to talk to people before we finalize the RFP document. It helped a lot. So this should become, you know, like part of a regular process for the government. So I think if in water at least we need to graduate from PPP to 4P model, that will bring success. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. You supported what Mr. Patrick was essentially saying, that the document, PPP document, is of critical value. And you also say that there is a learning to have from other sectors, PPP from other sectors. But in addition, you also brought in additional points that in addition to the administrative capacity of the local body, the financial condition of the local body